Hey, it's Dr. Sarah, and let's talk about strategic thinking. How would you describe strategic thinking, right? Think about it for a moment. How would you define it? What is important for strategic thinking to occur? A lot of times as leaders, we are not necessarily proactive in strategic thinking. Sometimes we can fall in the reactive space. And particularly, this can happen when there's a challenge or there's a conflict on our team. And then afterwards, we think, why didn't the team members think strategically? Or why didn't they make their decisions based on the strategy? Or how do we get these people to think strategically? Have you ever thought like that? So it's important for us as leaders to really understand, well, what is strategic thinking and how can we integrate it not only into our work as individual leaders within a context, but also how can we mentor and coach folks on our teams to also integrate strategic thinking into their work as well. Now let's pause for a moment and look at strategy. Now, a good definition for strategy comes from the resource Making Strategy, Mapping Out Strategic Success. In this resource, we see that strategy is about agreeing on priorities and then implementing those priorities towards the realization of organizational purpose. With this in mind, we really see strategy as that unifying approach, that unifying mechanism that guides the work of our team members, that guides the work of varying contributors, varying folks in different roles, as we all work towards fulfilling that strategy for the business. Now, let's also think about strategic thinking. What is involved in strategic thinking? In the resource, Becoming a Strategic Leader, Your Role in Your Organization's Enduring Success, we see that there's three critical aspects to strategic thinking. The first one is collective. The second one is present yet future-oriented. And the third aspect is artful yet analytical. Now, let's work through each of these. Collective. Collective means that we're not just relying on our own voice, but that we are hearing from others, we're involving others, we're collaborating with others who have varying perspectives and varying experiences. Next, when we think about present yet future-oriented, it means that as we make decisions, as we take action, as we conduct ourselves, we're not just focusing on what's happening today, but we're focusing on how those decisions that we're making today align us with that future vision, that future-oriented approach of what we ultimately aim to accomplish. And then the third piece of artful yet analytical really speaks to the importance of having creativity and innovation involved in how we go about decision making. Now, there are several ways that we can integrate strategic thinking into our work. One key way is looking at collaboration and how we as leaders can foster collaboration within our teams and within collective settings. 4 key tips that we have for you to keep in mind about how you can integrate strategic thinking into your collaborative spaces include allowing space for diversity, acknowledging the voice of team members, celebrating the work of the team, and holding individuals accountable. Now, in addition to these tips for how you may conduct collaborative situations and collaborative spaces, we also have an important approach for how you can frame situations, how you can frame challenges in a manner that leverages strategic thinking, right? We all face some of these upsets, challenges, fires, if you will. And how do we handle that from a strategic thinking perspective? How are we ensuring that we as leaders are handling the situation, we're approaching the situation in a way that does leverage strategic thinking? Again, we have a few steps for you to keep in mind as you frame these situations. Step 1, make sure that you gather the relevant information that you need. Step 2, define the challenge and the situation. Step 3, analyze the opportunities associated with the challenge or the situation. And then step 4, reframe the challenge and the situation towards a possible positive future. And this four-step approach is an important approach that we can keep in mind, because sometimes when a crisis occurs or we're dealing with real-time situations, we can forget, right? We can forget what do we do? What do we do? And we impulsively respond. So I encourage you to keep these four steps in mind. Maybe write them on a post-it note, have it in your office space. Have as a resource for how you can ensure that you integrate strategic thinking into your work and integrate that into the work of your team as well. So let me ask you, how will you integrate strategic thinking in your work?